you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Iron Lady sings it. That makes it official. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys being here. As always, thank you for supporting the show and being with us for 15 years. We bring you the CEOs, the billionaires, the White House presidential advisors, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the brilliant minds come on the show and share with you their stories, their journeys, their research, everything they've done in life that they share with you and impart to you to make your lives better. And there's so much you can learn from every show. Please refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. As always, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Follow the big LinkedIn newsletter, the 130,000 LinkedIn group over there. See us on the TikTok at Chris Voss1 and Chris Voss, Facebook.com. We have an amazing, prolific author on the show. Samuel T. Wilkinson joins us on the show. He's going to be talking to us about his new book that comes out March 5th, 2024. It's called Purpose: What Evolution and Human Nature Imply About the Meaning of Our Existence. And I think you'll be interested to see what his thoughts are on everything. Samuel T. Wilkinson is an associate professor of psychiatry at Yale School of Medicine, where he serves as the associate director of the Yale Depression Research Program. I think the whole program is based upon my depression. Probably made a lot of money off that. No, I'm just kidding. He received his BS in mechanical engineering from Brigham Young University, and later his medical degree from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. He completed his residency at Yale, where he joined the faculty following his postgraduate medical training. His primary research is focused on depression and suicide prevention and has been funded by the National Institution of Mental Health, the National Institution of Drug Abuse, the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation, and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Welcome to the show, Samuel. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to speak with you today.
There you go. It's wonderful to have you as well. Give us your .coms. Where on the internet's anyone you want to find you and stalk you?
So there's my Yale page. You could Google Yale and Samuel Wilkinson. I'd show up there. Or I do have a webpage for the book, samueltwilkinson.com.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview in your words, if you would, of your new book, Purpose.
Yeah, I've wanted to write this book for a long time. It goes back to when I was in medical school at Johns Hopkins, and for whatever reason, I had this crisis of meaning and this existential struggle I went through when I was learning about medicine, mainly because of the way that so much of it was contextualized in the theory of evolution. And I don't know why I never bumped into this before, maybe because I came to medicine in a roundabout way. But as I read more about evolution, I had the sense that, if this is true, then life has no purpose or meaning. And certainly that's kind of depressing. And I didn't like that. So I went through this period of a couple months of reading and studying and reflecting and meditating. And I had this somewhat of an intense resolution to what was an intense kind of struggle. So that was almost 15 years ago. And I had to put this project on the back burner a little bit while I finished my medical education and got established as a faculty here and was able to return to it a few years ago and wrap up the book. And it's been a challenging process, but satisfying.
There you go. Would you say it's kind of the existential crisis journey we all kind of go on where, there's the points in their life where we have this weird thing with humans that are conscious that, we contemplate our navels and try and figure out why we're here and what does it all mean and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think most people at some point in their lives will bump into some of these big questions, right? Like, what is life all about? Why am I here? Is there even a purpose to our existence, or are we just intricate molecular accidents, as some people do in fact believe? So I think there is a commonality that most people would experience as they wrestle with some of these questions.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You look at snakes or other animals in the kingdom, and we're not probably totally aware if they have some sort of consciousness. I think dogs have a little bit of consciousness. If you have huskies, they definitely have a consciousness.
Yeah.
You give them a command, and they're just like, I'll think about that. But they're kind of designed that way for running teams across ice and dangerous flows. But they, for the most part, as far as we know, there's no snakes running around going, what is my place in the universe? And, they're not sitting in a Zen garden trying to figure shit out. But, maybe who knows? I'm not in the mind of a snake. But there's a marriage joke there somewhere. Anyway, a divorce joke somewhere. But so give us, what are some of the things that you espouse in the book, or do you kind of just bring questions to people to help them kind of wander through that existential crisis of what is my meaning?
I do actually proffer some answers, and I try to keep this based in science and what we know and the latest evidence on the most up-to-date theories of human nature and origins. Mm-hmm. I can just go through what was kind of bothering me and mm-hmm. what I figured out. Back then, my somewhat superficial understanding of evolution was that it was a totally random process, right? And mm-hmm. and this is kind of what led me to this it seemed this conflict of if it was really random, we're just a fluke, our existence really has no purpose. There's this great quote by a professor from the 1970s who says essentially, life is of profound unimportance, a mere eddy in the primeval slime, right? And that kind of, for me, epitomized this. It's
a little disheartening, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a little bit,
just a bunch of slimy human beings.
Little bit of a downer. And there's a very influential professor of biology who was most active in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. His name is Stephen Jay Gould. He worked at Harvard, and he had this kind of thought experiment that if we could somehow rewind time back to the beginning and origins of life on Earth, and then watch it unfold again, it will be a totally different picture. And life would be totally different. There would almost certainly be no humans, and everything was subject to contingencies, chance events along the way. And it turns out that there's a lot of evidence that has emerged in biology since then that is probably not the case, and that there are that despite different starting paths or different routes, that there are these outcomes, these results that occur over and over and over again in nature, in biology, and there seem to be these deeper principles we still don't know a lot about that have constricted evolution to go in certain directions. From my perspective, and this is not a random thing. There is some randomness. There's some room for randomness, but it seems like the overall patterns, that there are deeper structures, as one eminent biologist calls them, or higher order principles that have constrained this process to go in certain directions and not others. Mm-hmm.
Now, the title of your book, you talk about evolution merged with human nature.
Yeah.
Is the human nature element, or how do you weigh that in? Does it weigh in, and what is the influence of that?
It definitely does. We can shift a little bit. If you want to go into how we get the sense that evolution is not random, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
But another part that to me was very kind of off-putting about evolution was what it implied about human nature. Right. And, shortly after Charles Darwin published his most famous book in 1859, another biologist coined this phrase, survival of the fittest. Right. And biologists don't really like that phrase today. They prefer the phrase natural selection. But there is some value to it and educational aspect to it. But it implies that we're, at our core selfish. Right. You think of those traits that would be helpful for survival, and you think of selfishness, you think of aggressiveness, you think of violence, and that kind of is a bleak picture, right? Mm-hmm. Richard Dawkins, his most famous book, his first book, The Selfish Gene, in the opening pages to that, he has this line where he says, look, if you're trying to build a good society, you're not going to get any help from biology because we are born selfish. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he would stand by that today, but that was something that was very bothersome to me, right? If it is true that we are somehow the products of evolution, what does that imply about our natures? It turns out that it's. Go ahead.
Finish your thought on it turns out, and let me see if my question still applies.
It turns out that it's not that simple, and certainly we all can think of cases and examples from humans as well as from animals of behavior that is the opposite of selfish and cooperative and altruistic and so forth. It's not a simple, human nature is not just a simple monolithic one type of thing. There's lots of caveats and nuances to it. And, as I dug into the literature on how do we think that evolution produced this, it's been enlightening to me about, what really is at the root of our nature? How can we structure our lives and our societies in order to bring out the best aspects of ourselves? To quote Lincoln, the better angels of our nature.
The better angels of our nature. Yeah, what a great quote. Yeah, the survival of the fittest really doesn't fit because you can go to the gym, you can work out, you can be the most healthiest guy in the world and get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
I joke about that guy who's spending $2 million a year. I don't know if you've seen him, but he's spending $2 million a year to try and live forever. And he's like, fit and eating healthy and, constantly testing himself. And, the joke is he'll get hit by a bus someday. Our house will fall on him.
Yeah, he's got his work cut out for him. That's sure. That's for sure. Some of it has to do with, what does it mean to be fit? And it's not always necessarily physically fit, having abs of steel and a six pack and that sort. It's being able to survive. But, another reason why that phrase is a little problematic because it's not all just about survival. It's about reproduction, right? And kind of continuing your lineage. And another part of this, this is where I think the interesting aspects of human nature come in is what the question I would ask is survival of the fittest what? Okay. So there are a number of different biological entities that can survive and reproduce. Because is it survival of the fittest gene or the fittest cell or the fittest individual or even maybe the fittest group or family, right? I'm kind of an all of the above type of guy. I think that in our in the history of life and the development of life, all of those, what they call different levels, have played a role. But when you think about the type of social traits that would emerge when you're thinking about survival of the fittest individual versus a survival of the fittest group, you come up with opposing traits. So let me tell a story, if that's all right.
Please.
That I think helps drive home this point. This is a remarkable story. This is actually from a colleague at Yale, Nicholas Christakis, who's a sociologist, has done some really interesting analysis. In 1864, there were two shipwrecks at the same time and place on opposite ends of what's called the Auckland Islands. This is 300 miles south of mainland New Zealand. The first ship was led by a man named Musgrave, Thomas Musgrave. And after 18 months of a harrowing ordeal and much resourcefulness and ingenuity, all of the crew members of that first ship survived. By the way, the crew members, when they were shipwrecked, they never came across each other. The islands were sufficiently large and spread apart that they never bumped into each other. So the first ship, Musgrave, they all survived. The second ship was led by a man named George Delgarno, and unfortunately, most of the crew of his ship died and didn't make it. What was the key difference? The key difference was that the crew members of the first ship, they stuck together. They cooperated. They, had each other's back. And this was epitomized within this first few minutes or hours. The captain himself, he carried an injured member of the crew on his back as he swam through the torrential waves to the safety of the shore. Okay. The second ship, their crew members, they kind of had this every man for himself type approach. And within the first few days of shipwrecking, they left a wounded man behind to die. And so you see, it's kind of easy to think of in, the distant past where altruism and looking out for each other would have been helpful for survival and perpetuation of the race and so forth. Selfishness may work in certain contexts, but in a group setting, altruism is better, right? And that goes for a number of different, behavioral traits: cooperation and aggression, kindness, cruelty. If you have a more cohesive group, that's going to do better in the long run than if you have a group composed of a bunch of people who are fighting and bickering and can't get along.
There you go. So do you feel that our ability to pull that and not be selfish and be benevolent or altruistic, do you feel that's by a design, or or do you suggest this by some sort of design of someone smarter and better than us, or do you feel that are there examples? And this is a second question, I guess, to follow up. Is that we find that in nature, don't we? I know wolves have an interesting society that's might be different than other mammals.
I mean, it seems to be a function of natural principles that there's a great quote I like from two eminent biologists who say basically, selfish individuals beat altruistic individuals, but altruistic groups beat selfish groups. Everything else is commentary, and that's kind of like an eternal principle, right? That seems to at least in my view, it seems to transcend our a lot of our everyday experience in the here and now. That seems to be just a principle of nature, right? That they're competing dispositions that can evolve from different levels of selection, as biologists refer to this issue. In humans, where I do think, I think there's design to that. And when you combine that with, so just to clarify, I think we have the capacity for both. When you look at human nature, human history, when you look at your own experience, every person has strengths and weaknesses. Every person has the capacity to be selfish, but also the capacity to be unselfish, to look out for the good of others. And this helps, at least for me, get us out of the quagmire of human nature that philosophers and scientists have dealt with in a long time. Are we selfish or altruistic? The answer is yes. We have the capacity to be both of these things.
But isn't there one that lies at our deepest core? I mean, you and I are both men. We know at our deepest core that if you and I fight, we have the penchant that one of us might live and one of us might die. And at that moment, between you living and me dying, we're going to be very selfish about survival at our very core. Now, we can be benevolent and altruistic when we're awash in goodness, kindness, witness, and sharing. But if we're fighting over the last woman on earth or the last piece of corn to feed our family and kids, things can turn out a little different. But I mean, in the end, when it comes down to survival of the fittest, if you want to call it that, you made me rethink the survival of the fittest, because I was watching George Burns last night on Carson. I love watching Carson still. And, he was smoking his 10th cigar he said that day, and he's 100 years old or some shit. And it was made me realize survival of the fittest may include DNA. So you made me rethink that, DNA and chromosomes and family lineage. But to me, at the very core, when it really comes down to the moment, survival is going to take precedence over benevolence. I think most times when it comes down to personal survival.
I'm going to, if it's all right, I'm going to gently push back and say I disagree. I think the other aspect that I haven't touched upon here that I think completes this circle and makes a case that there's a purpose to our existence has to do with free will, right? And in my book, at least, I don't try to get into how we have that or, the natural explanations for that. It's a bit of a mystery to me. There's been a great book since I finished my book that has come out by a guy named Kevin Mitchell about this. It's just brilliant. Don't tell my publicist I'm promoting other people's books on your podcast, but he just has a great book. And if you can get him on the show, I think that'd be worth a conversation.
What's the title of the book?
I think it's Free Agents. And then
Free
it has
Agents.
a subtitle.
Well, reach out to him.
Yeah, but so here's the observation that we have free will, right? There are some people who don't agree, and they tend to be philosophers and neuroscientists. And
Sam Harris, I think specifically.
Yep. Sam Harris. Robert Sapolsky just came out with a book about how we don't have free will. I disagree with them. I do think we have free will. The vast majority of people believe we have free will. That seems to be, our everyday experience, that, no one thinks of him or herself as the passive follower of the brain or body, right? To some degree, we are in control of our thoughts, attention, speech, and action. Not to say that environment and culture and biology don't, point us in one direction or another, but at the crux of it, there is some realm within which we are free to act and to choose and so forth. When you combine this with this kind of what I call the dual potential of human nature, it seems like life is a test. Okay, we have this free will. We're pulled in different directions. We're altruistic, but also selfish. It seems like one of the purposes of our existence is to choose between the good and evil inherent within us. Now, I'll circle back to your issue of when it really comes to the the rubber meets the road. If we're fighting over the last morsel, everyone's going to be selfish. I'm going to push back and say I don't think that's true. I think one of my favorite books is by this man, this psychiatrist actually, someone who I'm proud of in our history of psychiatry, Viktor Frankl, who wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning, in which he described his experience as a prisoner of a concentration camp. And he had the observation where, even in the most dreadful circumstances, when, death was, at your door, people would still behave in unselfish ways, and they would give away their last morsel of bread, or speak kindly or reach out in kindness to others who were suffering. There were some people who chose the opposite and chose were fighting and clawing to the very last end. But I think that at our core we do have a choice. Okay, now it's not free of constraint. We are pulled. We are certainly influenced by culture, by biology. But at the core, we have a choice of how to respond, even in the most dire of circumstances. No, I can't speak for personal experience. I've never been in anything as difficult as a concentration camp. But I love that book. It continues to be a bestseller, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Yeah.
Let me dial back the scope, though.
Yep.
I mean, even if we're not fighting over the last morsel, there's still some benevolence there. Certainly if you're a provider to your family, you would see the bigger vision maybe, and like, okay, if I let him have the less morsel, we can team up and we can go hunt down some other stuff. We can work together. That's kind of one of the great things we do tribally. But really, to me, at the very core of survival is mano a mano. If you and I go against each other as men, we're designed to be killers. As men, we're desined to be killars.
But we're also designed to cooperate, right? I'll agree with you. Yeah. I'll agree with you that we have a capacity.
If you or I go mano a mano in a fight and escalates to the point of blows, and we know that it can go to death. Most men know that if they fight each other, there is a height of death. If we go to the mano a mano with each other to the point of death, where we're fighting, and it becomes apparent to both of us that we're in it to kill each other, or at least one of us is, I'm in it to kill you. You're not going to be benevolent and go, I don't really need, my wife and kids will probably respect me if I'm benevolent and just let this guy win, right? I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. You're the scientist here in nature.
So there's lots of different ways things can play out. What, as you say,
no,
if we go mano to mano. The other thing is we could try to decide to cooperate and say, look, there's only so much resource left. Let's cooperate and make more resources. One of the things that is unique about humans is the level to which we cooperate, right? Yeah. Heart surgery, going to the moon, the technology that we use every day, none of this is possible without cooperation, right? Not a single person can create something like this. It takes a huge number of people with different expertise to pull something like this together. So, yes, I agree that we have that capacity to go head-to-head, mano-a-mano, and kill each other. And it doesn't take long to go back to the history of humanity to see that we can behave in terrible and unspeakably violent ways to each other. But we also have this deep capacity to cooperate. And I think, I just think that speaks to that we have this dual potential of human nature. Yeah. And we try to choose the better aspects to it. Certainly certain contexts, right? When these resources are low, people can turn against each other, but they can also not, right? As Viktor Frankl's experience kind of testifies to that.
Yeah. I still think at the very core, I think one of the things that influences, I remember watching MASH, the TV show. Yep. And there was an incident there where a guy kept threatening to commit suicide. He kept attempting suicide in the hospital ward there. And finally, I forget his name, the captain there was like 2 different ones over the show. But the captain says, "You want to die? We'll fucking help you die," and tries to kill him, or attempts to try and kill him. And the man fights back, and he's like, "See,
Why am I fighting back?
You really don't want to die. You're full of shit. So what is your real problem?" But no, honestly, I don't know if you've ever met a human predator or a sociopath. Imagine you have in some of your studies.
Yeah.
If you've ever met someone who is actively hunting you, it's a whole different level of realization of survival. And you can negotiate your way, but if you've ever been someone who's been in front of someone who's a serial killer who has decided you're their mark, you're probably not going to live to know the difference, and you're going to fight back and selfishly. I'm sure everybody who's ever been in the presence of a serial killer and in that moment they might try and negotiate, but they're definitely going to fight back, and if they can, and they're going to do it for a selfish reason. And they're not just going to roll over and be like, "I'm going to be benevolent today and let you die." And I think that reaches the core aspect of who we are when there isn't an abundance or plentiful. And I think that's our nature really at its core, because we're going to fight for survival. I mean, we're built to breed and survive and propagate the species. I don't know. I still think that breaks us down to our bottom. When you have plenty of everything, everything's negotiable and everyone's friendly. I run companies, and the rule is everyone's friendly until the money gets on the table. Then you kind of find out who you're dealing with.
Yep, you do. And money can be tricky. I have no qualms with that. In some ways, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But I do think we have a choice. I think certainly there's variability between people, and there is this small portion of people, most of whom are men, that seem to just fit that category of sociopath and just do things and just don't have that streak of benevolence or that seed of benevolence in them. I don't think defending yourself is necessarily, I don't think the benevolent thing to do is just to give up and die. There's self-interest versus selfishness, right? Self-interest is doing things for yourself. Selfishness is doing things at the expense of others for yourself.
What do you think separates that, though? Those seem aligned.
It's the relationship with other people, right? So if you go out and try to be productive and use natural resources to provide for yourself and your family, that is self-interest. But if you go out and steal from the labor of someone else who has already, gathered resources, then you're taking away from them, and that's selfish. Okay. So I would draw a distinction between self-interest and selfishness. I don't think self-interest is bad. Obviously, we have to, work hard and provide for ourselves, for families, if we have dependents and so forth. But I'm going to push back and say I don't think most people at their core are evil. I do think at our core we're conflicted, but most people, and I don't think you would see societies like you do, we are just in some ways, the most cooperative of species. You wouldn't see that if we didn't have this deep core of benevolence and cooperation and altruism. And it's the way that these interact that I think is fascinating. But I guess I maintain my sense that I think that we are a mix of good and evil, and part of the purposes of life is to overcome our weaknesses and enhance our strengths.
And you think that's by intelligent design of some type?
Intelligent design is an interesting phrase because there's a whole movement of people who are kind of trying to fight against the basic principles of evolution and say, evolution can't explain this, it can't explain that, it must be God. I think I'm sympathetic to the folks in intelligent design. Some of them are very, very smart and brilliant. I kind of have a philosophical disagreement that, look, I'm a theist, okay? I believe in a God. I believe that we have a purpose to our existence. There's a lot that we can't explain, but I don't think God works in ways that at some point we're not going to all be able to understand. I think there was a mechanism to this, to the way that we were created, and that natural selection is part of that. Okay.
Is a lot of the stuff that you espouse in the book that's our ability to be benevolent and altruistic, or have the good and the bad, evil and choices? Is that what you foundation on as the the fact that there might be a higher being, or what are some other maybe examples you espouse in the book that support that?
Help me make sure I understand your question.
Sure. I run a lot of theories, so
Okay.
I'm always evolving in what I think. So basically, I think what I'm asking is what else in your book supports this theory, so we can flesh out your book for readers.
Yeah.
That is the foundation of what you believe in, that there's a higher being, the fact that we can be good and evil and we can make those free will choices, or what are some other foundations maybe in the book that you've theorized that support that?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? So one is this notion that evolution wasn't random. We're not just intricate molecular accidents. The other is that we have this dual potential of human nature, and when you combine that with the notion that we have free will, life is a test, and it seems like that's one of the purposes for our existence. Another part has to do with relationships. Okay. And, relationships are interesting and important. More and more, we just have overwhelming evidence that the most important factor for happiness, for well-being, and so forth is relationships, right? And one of the interests that I have is trying to explain the origins of that. Where does that come from? Why are relationships so important for well-being and happiness and so forth? And I promise I will try to circle back to your original question, but in my view, the deepest form of love, of goodness, of altruism has to do with how nature shaped our relationships, mainly with our children. And this has to do with the fact that our offspring are so immature when they are born that of necessity, parents have had to develop a deep love and concern and care for them to survive, right? So, giraffes can walk within a few days of being born. Foals can gallop, I think, within a few hours. But, some scholars who study infant development, they refer to the first, say 6 months of life as the fourth trimester, because our babies are born half-baked, right? And they depend on us, not just for the first year or so, but for, essentially until they're teenagers. Yeah. And in modern society, they're still kind of, they're still dependent on you as teenagers.
There's some that are 30 that are still living at home.
The kind of delayed maturation of teenagers and adults is, there's a relationship there with the internet and social media that we can get into, but, there's just this interesting, to me, it's very interesting that the deepest forms of love, if you believe that evolution is responsible for human beings, the deepest forms of love were created by nature in relationship to how we interact with our children and our family members. And, another interesting aspect of that is that, you ask parents, I'm a parent, what is the most challenging thing you've done? It's like, clearly it's raising kids. Yeah. What is the most rewarding thing you've done? Raising kids. And those things seem to be inextricably linked, right?
Yeah.
Because, to drive this point home, try to imagine what our social lives would be like if we were seahorses, okay? So in addition to the fact that seahorses have male pregnancy, which would probably make for some different parental leave policies, they give birth to 2,000 seahorses at once, give or take probably a couple hundred, but they give birth to all these seahorses at once. And then it's okay, bye, you're off on your own. There's no parental support. Yeah. And, no human being knows exactly what it's like to be a seahorse, but I bet it's a good bet that they don't feel deep love and concern for their kids, because it's just kind of okay, you're off. Good luck. Most of you are going to get eaten, but, for those who pass on our genes, I'm proud of you, right? Obviously, there's a little bit of I'm taking a little bit of liberty there, but there seems to be this deep connection, this, in the confluence of biology and psychology, this inextricable connection between deep love and compelling sacrifice. Yeah, and you can't really separate those, which to me is interesting. To get back to your question, is there more evidence I have, that maybe there's more to existence than we can see and feel, and is there an afterlife and so forth? I can't prove necessarily on a science in the same way that we can prove that the COVID vaccines in their first round were safe and effective. I have personal experiences, and a lot of people have personal experiences that also lead me to go in this direction that I feel like there's more to life than when we die, that we cease to exist. I believe that our family relationships can continue to exist beyond our existence here. And that is where people draw the deepest forms of meaning and reward is in relationships. And I think that we were designed that way.
All right. Yeah, I just want to flesh out other parts of the book because we kind of got hung up there for a little while on one topic, and I want to make sure we tease out all the different aspects of your book. Let me offer something because I want to hear your thoughts on it. You're the scientist here. Now, when it comes to relationships, we're built to breed. I mean, whatever you want to believe, it seems like the design of the universe is everybody's got to breed snakes. Everyone's got to, you got to try and propagate the species, because if you don't, then, it sends you the way of the dodo. And when it comes to so it's important for us in relationships and our design to have what we have. A woman is designed a certain way and a man is designed a certain way to provide and protect. We're giving up our body strength for that mode. Everything goes back to human nature, at least in my mind, to caveman times. You've got the hunter-gatherer sort of mechanism that a lot of us still operate from today. You can point to it everywhere, at least in a biased, I suppose, sense. But when we see our children, and I believe the same chemical things are hit on us, when we see a baby's face, we're hit with dopamine. And I think serotonin for women, or one of the two. And there's a pair bonding effect chemical for women that binds themselves to their children, unless it's broken. Yeah, that's why you don't wife up the town whore. So there's pair bonding chemicals that go on through that. There's another important one is oxytocin. Sorry to interrupt. That's you are correct. That's the other thing. This is why you're the scientist and I'm not. But I know that those chemicals bind us and give us that attachment and that desire. I mean, if you show any baby face to a woman, no matter how ugly that damn baby is, and I've seen some ugly babies. I've seen my childhood photos. I was a fat, ugly ass baby, and nothing's changed in 56 years. But I'll take a hit for the team. But it doesn't matter. That person will still, and part of it is our penchant to, and you're right, we're really fucking weirdly, I believe, evolved, you would say designed. But, the fact that we have this giant brain and this giant head that we can't really hold up. And so you're right, we come out as a fourth trimester where a horse, can fairly defend itself or maybe run off. A baby can't really do that if it's unoffendable. And so, we really have to, part of it has to do with the size of our brains, I believe.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And our heads, because we can't hold our head up, where most animals I think kind of can, and at least if they experience danger, they could at least run off or have a sense of it. I don't think babies can even get a sense of it. And you can see that, there's a famous baby experiment where they took a child, I forget what it's called, but that you may have, I'm sure you've heard of it, but they took a baby and the mother, would be interacting with it, and facial features and human are the stuff that goes on metaphysically in our brain or whatever it's called. And then they did an experiment where the mother just goes dead face and doesn't either look at the child or show any emotion or any sort of facial recognition of emotion. And the child starts freaking the hell out, it starts losing its mind. It's really amazing to watch. And we're designed to have those chemical reactions to each other. They're very important for those chemicals we talked about in our brain. When you say that those chemicals, might not be there for design, maybe they're biologically put there for that purpose to propagate the species.
I guess I'm saying that yes. So I would say yes, they're by design, and yes, they're by that there's a mechanism by which we were created, and I think evolution is that mechanism. Natural selection is that mechanism. So I don't think those are, I don't think those are two different things. Okay, you and we were talking a little bit earlier. You may not think it was by design; it was just biology. I think it's biology, and yes, I think it was design. That they're natural mechanisms by which this happened. I'm happy to go through. It is also really interesting, right? This connection between babies can't hold up their heads and so forth. And this has to do with, I think what you were starting to go down, right, is we're designed to breed. What is human nature on that? And again, I think there's this duality to it, right? We have a capacity to have multiple partners, but there's also a part of us that that can lean towards monogamy. And, it's a bit of a mystery, not a mystery. There are good theories as to how we develop the capacity for monogamy, but it's clear that it's not only that, right? We also, there's plenty of cases where, human beings, especially men, are looking to have multiple sexual partners. But anyway, I'll stop there and see if you want to drive us in one direction or another.
There you go. We want to tease out your book. We don't want to flush the whole book out for everybody. You got to buy the book, damn people, and read this stuff so that you understand what all of it is. But I just want to make sure we teased out all the different principles. We could go back and forth in these to try and flesh them out. But the main thing I want is for people to, know what's in your book and give it a read. Everything's a theory, and I believe everyone should educate themselves on everything. Is there anything you want to tease out, because we're kind of rounding out the hour? Is there anything you want to tease out in the book that maybe we haven't talked about? We're kind of long on a couple topics, so I want to make sure we tease out whatever we need to tease out to get people to pick up the book.
Yeah, going back to the relationships part, the way that, I mentioned how the deepest forms of love and cooperation and so forth, in my view, and I think most behavioral scientists would agree that those were formed in the way that nature shaped our relationships with our children. And I think there's also this notion that when we can, because the root of the best aspects or the better angels of our nature, again, quoting Lincoln, because they have the root in the way that we relate to our children, that as much as we can create communities and societies in which parents and also aunts and uncles and so forth are involved in rearing their children, that people are going to be happier. They're going to find life more meaningful, rewarding. And they're also going to be able to overcome their weaknesses better. There's there's really interesting biology about how, men specifically who have a more tenuous link to their children than women for, biological reasons that for a lot of us are obvious. When they are involved in rearing their children, their testosterone levels go down. They become less aggressive. They become more cooperative. And so trying to help men be involved in rearing their children, I think, is going to pay dividends for society. It's also going to help them find more meaning in life. And I think, again, you may disagree, I think that's by design. Fatherhood is really important. That's another part of my book that hopefully people will find interesting and compelling.
Yeah, and fatherhood is important too. I think most researchers will agree with this, and the data supports it. A father being in the home is really important too in the rearing of a child and the raising of a child. And I won't agree on the sign, but this is. You're here to promote your book. The fact that father is important. I'm a guy who's dated all of his life from 56, and I can tell you the difference between a father being in the home and having a valuable blueprint imprint makes all the difference. And I can quote you all the data of what happens when it's not. In fact, 96% of our prisons come from fatherless homes. The data is incomprehensible, indisputable, really, when it comes down to it. And I can tell you from my social research of dating all my life, I can tell you there's a distinct difference in the quality of life. And I'm at the point where I'm seeing the end result of it. Yeah. And I can tell you there's a huge difference between dating someone who had a father in the home, who's a good father, made a good imprint, to being a fatherless home. So yeah, it's really important in society, I think. Yeah. I think that, and it doesn't matter what I think, so we can go all day.
It does matter. It does matter. These are really interesting topics. We could go all day. We want to have another conversation.
Yeah. And we want people to buy your book and read it. I believe one thing, but I believe everyone should read all of this stuff, because that's how I think both of us got to our theories. And to me, I operate on theory. I may tell you something tomorrow. Maybe I'll tell you I discovered, I don't know, Scientology tomorrow. That's not going to happen, people. But I don't know. You never know. If I do, please check me into hospital care. But Samuel, give us your .com so people can find you on the book, and the final pitch out to people to order up your book wherever fine books are sold.
Sure. The book webpage is samueltwilkinson.com. The book is about evolution, human nature, and how, in my view, it provides a framework that we have a purpose to our existence and how we can find meaning in our lives.
There you go. And then, do we get your .coms?
samueltwilkinson.com.
There you go. There you go. And thanks for entertaining my banter back and forth.
Sure.
Sure. It adds for a lot of context. So there you go. Yeah. Folks, order up the book wherever fine books are sold. And it is called Purpose: What Evolution and Human Nature Imply About the Meaning of Our Existence. Available March 5th, 2024, wherever fine books are sold. Thanks to Samuel for coming on the show with us. And please come back for your next book, Samuel. We'd love to have you. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1, the TikTokity, and Chris Voss, Facebook.com. You know, we're all over the place. Just go to wherever that is and tell your friends to do it. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys